Solutions is a balanced staffing company developed by a group of professionals with an experience of over 18+ years in staffing solutions. With years of quality and committed high-end application development and staffing experience, we have become experts at delivering the right fit, the first time. We will be glad to be your last stop and provide you with the perfect solution to your requirements. Follow ScholarID Solutions LinkedIn page. For more updates, follow our social media pages.
Thank you for joining the session. As you can see on the screen, this session is organized by ScholarID Solutions. ScholarID is a IT solutions provider. It's a group of professionals and technical guys. They've created a group. They provide a robust team for serving various kind of solutions to the clients in the USA. So there are links available in the chat. You can follow them on social media. So we keep doing these kind of sessions on different technologies. So you will get an update when where the session is happening. So do follow them and provide your feedback on the articles as well. There are numerous articles that are written on the page for various technologies. So please go through it and be up to date. So this is a little bit about me. My name is Ankit. So I am some years in the industry, around 11 years of experience I have. I am an Oracle consultant. I have experience in Golden Gate, Autonomous, Postgres, open source, BMC, Control M. So this session will be taken by me. For those who were not there in the last session, this is a continuation of that. Basically, we covered Postgres architecture in last session, where I went through the complete architecture of PostgreSQL. This session is basically organized to give a demo for how the session works, how Postgres works and those things. So we will directly jump onto the demo. If you have any questions, please ask anytime during the session. It is a basic demo which will give you confidence that you can learn the technology. It's pretty easy to administer. It is easy to manage. If you have little technical background, then also you can learn Postgres. So that's why that is the reason the demo has been created. Okay, so if you can see my screen, I have a instance, EC2 instance, on which I have already installed Postgres. So I am not covering the installation because that is something separate. We can always do that in coming sessions, but once you install Postgres, after that what you do, how to connect, what you do, how to administer those things I will cover in this session today. Okay, so before I start, anybody has any questions? Okay.
Hi Ankit, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Ankit, where can I find the previous architecture video?
I think Karthik, if you can put the link out, if you have already uploaded it, just put it in the chat window and they can look at it. Okay, so you can just look at the chat and you will get the link of the previous,
Okay,
video.
thanks.
Previous. Okay, great. So as I said, I have already done the installation. So what happens in Postgres is once you install it, it automatically creates an OS user for you as well. So once you've installed it, how do you log in? Is you just do the sudo to that user. So if you can see, I've successfully gone into the user. So now I am as a Postgres user inside the system. So always remember that you don't have to create anything upfront. You install it using root. And once you install it, during the process of installation, it will ask you for the password and all those things, and it creates a OS user for you. And the user would be Postgres if you are installing open source. Postgres, if you are doing an EDB Postgres, the user would be EDB. Okay, so that is the difference. There is no other difference, but only the name of the user changes. From here, how to log in into the prompt or how to log into the database prompt, you need to just give pSQL. Okay, so you can say that as soon as I go into pSQL, it gives me the version of the database. So I am using 10. Right now, the current version in the market is 14. Right, so whatever version you have installed, that version will come here. And if you see here, it gives me the prompt. Okay, if it's a new installation, you might not directly get it because you might have to set some environment variables. Okay, so I will talk about that maybe in a session where I would discuss installation. Okay, so I will club that with installation. So once you have installed and set your environment variables, you just give pSQL, it comes from the prompt. Okay, so now I have the
one question. Sorry.
Yes.
You installed this using a yum install or how?
No, I did through the run file. You can
Run
do
file,
it. So
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So for
Yeah,
the
both.
installation also, there are various ways. Good question. Let me put that also. You can directly install using the RPMs. So if your box has an internet connection, you can do a yum installation. So yum is nothing but it will use the RPMs. If you don't have it, then you need to download the software. That would be a run file, and you can just run the run file in your box. Okay. So these are the things through which you can. It's a very simple installation, 3 to 4 steps only. You don't have to do much in that. Okay, so now I am in the Postgres prompt. So what does this prompt say? This prompt say that I am connected to Postgres database using as a Postgres user. Okay, so now see, Postgres is an RDBMS, so it understands SQL language. So if you know Oracle, you know SQL, you know things, you will know SQL queries. So simple queries you put, it will give you the response. So for example, if I want to see the number of databases already available in the installation by default, so I can give select star from pg_database. So how you can give analogies to your Oracle is, in Oracle everything is DBA underscore, right? DBA underscore tablespace, DBA underscore data file, like this. In Postgres it is PG underscore. So PG underscore database, and if I run this, it gives me a lot of information. So by default, remember, whenever you do the installation, there are 3 databases that gets created. Okay, one is Postgres, one is template 1, and one is template 0. Okay, so these are by default databases. If you do an EDB installation, instead of Postgres, the database would be EDB. That is the only difference. Okay, so this is by default. You can't do anything in that. It will come with your installation. Along with SQL, there are other ways to, query Postgres database. So there are some shortcuts that are very good in Postgres. So if I want to see the same information, I can just do \L on the prompt, and you can see that it tells me the details. It doesn't tell all the details, but these are the details I don't want. I just want to know the database name. So it's here. So I don't have to complete these things. So you have to.
\L means it is nothing but running a previous query, or
no. It's a command. It's not a previous query. It's a shortcut. Okay. So it's a shortcut. So it says list of databases. So \L is list of databases. Okay. So again, if I want some more information on this, so I can just give \L plus. So you see that, till here the data is available. Then it also gives you the size of the database. So see, I have 3 databases. Template 0, template 1, the size are same because they're template, but it tells you the table space also, which table spaces are there, and the basic description of the database. Okay, so this is how you can run smaller queries, but again, you need to remember these queries. L plus, like that. This will come as you do your practice. But if you are not comfortable with shortcuts, you can always run, select star from pg_database. So this also gives you the same information. Okay. Now, if I want to look at the user, right? What user I am connected to, or something like this. So you have to do like this: select current_user. Okay, and then you give like this. So it tells you which user it is. Postgres. right? So in Oracle, there is show database, DB name, those things are there, right? The same way there is these commands in Postgres, where it tells you, okay, what database it is. So now if I want to look at what database I'm connected to, right? So you will select current underscore database, and then you have to give because it's a function, and then if you give, it tells you the database name. So basically Postgres is the database name and Postgres is the user. Okay, so this is how you can find out what is your current user and what is your current database. Correct. Now creating database, if I talk about, I don't want to work into these databases, I want to create my own database, those things. So you can create databases. It's very easy to create databases. It's not like an Oracle that you need to run a DBCA and do all those things. That's not there. Just a simple command, create database name, it will come. Okay, so if I want to create, suppose, a test database, right? So create database test. If I do like this with a semicolon and I enter it, so it gives me an output, create database. That means my command was successful. Okay, it doesn't say that, okay, your database was created, or if it comes like create database, that means it is successful. So now if I want to check whether the database was created or not, so you can just again do /l and give plus. So you can see that the new database has come in, right?
Hi, Ankit.
A new data.
Yeah, sorry
Yes.
to disturb you. Suppose if you want to create any other character set database like French or something else other than UTF-8, can you give an example?
You can do that, but that is an advanced level. Okay, so I won't get into that in this training, in this webinar. But any data, this is a default, command. So if I don't give anything by default, it takes this. But if you want to give something, you have to give it at the back. Okay, so if you want to do something other than UTF-8, you have to give some other encoding. Okay, maybe we will discuss this in a higher sessions when we go in deep. Okay, right. So if you see here, I created a database test. It has created the database. Owner is Postgres because I am connected through Postgres user, and all these are default values. So whatever default values. Yes, Pankaj. So whatever default values you don't give anything, it takes the default value. So these are the default values, right? And if you see the size, it will exactly be the size of your template databases, because it creates a database as your template database. That is why the size of the database would be your template database. Okay, so this is how you create a basic database for yourself. So now once you have created the database, right, if you want to connect to the database, because I am connected to Postgres database, if you see right now here, right? So how do I connect to the database? So for that, what you have to do is you have to do /c, and then you give the name of the database. So /c is your connection to the database, to your new database. So you give test like this. If you don't mention anything after this, that means you are connecting it with the Postgres user. That's a default user, right? So if I don't give anything, I just give /c test and enter. So see, it says you are now connected to database test as user Postgres. Okay, so we will come to other users also slowly, but this is something that you should understand. So now how do I connect to the other database? So if you see, I did this, and now the prompt has changed to test. Right. So if you again look at what is your current database, so just check that and you will find out now you're connected to test database. This is how you move from one database to other database, and your Postgres has access to all the databases by default because it's a super user. Okay, any questions till now? Okay, no questions, fine. Now if I want to look at the tables, right, what tables my database has, or any details inside the database. So again, you can look for pg_tables. So your select start from pg underscore tables. So again, dba underscore tables we have pg underscore tables. So see, it tells you a lot of tables. So these are all default tables. Okay, so you can look at them if you want, but these will be a lot of tables. So basically pg underscore tables is something that is used to find any table that you want to look. Okay, but if you want to look for any user tables, right, that you created or it's already available, so you have to give /dt. So it doesn't say any, because there are no user tables in test. We did not create anything. It's a new fresh database, right? So there are nothing. So that is why it tells me there are no relations. Basically, if you do /dt, it tells you the number of relations. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a table in this, and let's see what happens. So let's say create table. It's a simple command. How you create a table in Oracle or any other RDBMS, you give the same command. You don't have to do anything different. So create table name. So my table name is suppose test2, okay, or test or whatever it is. I'm giving test2 because test is the database name. So test2, and I'll just create with one, column. So ID is the column and integer, right? And I'll just give like this. So say it says create table. That means it was successful. So I successfully created a table. So if I give /dt now, you can see now there is a list of relations which has popped up, and it says that the table name is test2. It's a table because we created a table. If you have a view or something, it will say view, and owner is Postgres because that's the user we are using, and public is the schema. Right? By default, anything and everything will go in public schema, and it's the same concept how in Oracle you have users tablespace, right? By default, anything and everything goes into users tablespace or sys schema if you don't mention anything, correct? So in the same way here, anything and everything goes in your public schema if you don't mention the schema name or something like that. So now I have a table created. So this table is always particular to database, right? I created this in test. So if I go back and log into Postgres, so I'm now into Postgres. So if I check now, see, I don't have any table. So the concept remains the same, though all these databases are clubbed into one installation. Though all these databases together are called a cluster. They have their own objects. So that is why what I created in test doesn't show up in Postgres. That's how your RDBMS is supposed to behave. Okay, so now again let me go to test and again do /dt. So now you can see the table is existent there. Okay, in the similar way, if I want to check the users, so now I have a database connection, I have a table. Now if I want to look at the users, so what I do to look at the users is select /dn. Okay, so you can sorry, this is for schema, not for users. So if you see, it tells you the list of schemas. So I have not created any schema. It will show me a default public schema, and the owner will always be Postgres. Okay, any questions till now? Okay, if I run the same command going to Postgres user, okay, connect to Postgres and again run /dn. So again you see there are no schemas which we created till now. So by default it's always a public schema that is available to all the databases. Okay, now what we're going to do is let's see the number of users. So let's see what default comes. So if you want to see the number of users, you give /du. Okay, so you can see there is only one role. So even if you create a role, even if you create a user, both will come as list of roles in Postgres. Okay, so this is a little bit different than how you have in Oracle. So if you are trying to learn Postgres, this is something that you need to understand. Okay, so
Same as like MySQL.
Yes. Okay, so if you want to look at the number of users or roles, just give /du. So it will tell you what are there. So Postgres by default come, as I said, it's a super user. And these are the privileges that it has apart from super user privileges. So these are the privileges that you can give to a particular user as well whenever you create. Okay, so let's do one thing. Let's create it. If you want to look at these things from a SQL perspective, so you can give select star from pg_roles. Okay, so here you can see the roles that are there. So apart from Postgres, these are the default roles that has come, but this is something that is important for us, and Postgres comes here. Okay, so this is from a SQL perspective. If you are not comfortable with these commands, you can use pg_rules. Okay, so let's create a user and see what happens. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just create a simple user. So create user, consider u1 with password, and I will give a password. The password has to be in quotes, because if I don't give in quotes, so it gives me an error, syntax error. Okay, so whenever you create a password, you have to give it in quotes. Okay, so now you see, even if I created a user, it says create role. So that's how it is. There is no difference in listing it. There is a difference in a role and a user. You can create a role as well here, but again, it will say create role only. Okay, so now if I look at the user list of users /du, you can see u1. U1 has come in, but it doesn't have any kind of privileges, because by default I have not given anything. But always remember that even if you don't give any user privilege, it still gets the connect privilege. So even using U1, I can connect to different databases. Whatever databases are available, I can connect to all those databases with a new user. Okay, so if you want to see that, so if, for example, we have test database, right? /l, I have a test database. So if I want to connect to that, so /c test, then I will give u1. It will ask me for password, and then it will say you are connected. See, I just created a user. I did not give any privileges to the user. Still, I was able to connect to a database through that user. Correct. So that is how it is there in Postgres. In Oracle, what happens is when you create a new user, you give connect privilege, right? Connect and grant resource privilege to the user. Then only you can connect to a database. But in Postgres, it's not like that. So whenever you connect it, whenever you create it, by default gets that privilege. So this is a security thing. You know, if you are using a production box or something, you might need to look at it and revoke the privilege, because you might not need all your users to connect to all your databases. Okay, so this is something that you need to look at while you are designing. If you are an architect or if you are designing a box, these are the things that you need to look at. Okay, any questions till now?
Is there any option for passing the port like that?
Which port?
Like MySQL, we have to suppose your instance is running on different port. So like that,
Yes.
here also.
There is an option. Yes. So when you connect, right, pSQL. So if you are by default, it will, or if you don't give anything, it will take 5432 port. But if your instance is running on some other port, for example 5433, then you have to mention -p and the port number there. Otherwise, it will not connect. If you don't mention anything, it will always go and connect. Try to connect on 5432.
Sorry, I have a question.
Yes.
I'm not sure, maybe you mentioned it, but is there a difference between a role and a user? Because I saw that when you created the user, it was under a role.
Right. There is definitely a difference between a role and a user in Postgres, but what happens is all of them are listed under list of roles. So even if I create a user, it also gets listed in the list of roles. If I create a role, so there is a command to create a role also. Okay, so create role. Suppose role1 I give. Okay, nothing much, not fancy. So create role1. Okay, so I am through user u1. So let me go to Postgres. And through Postgres. Okay, so now if I create a role, create role R1. So this command is also working, right? Create role is also working, and if you see create user is also working. But if I give /du, both of them get listed here. Okay, user also gets listed in the list of roles. So this is a little bit weird here, but yes, there is definitely a difference between a role and a user. Okay, so I'm not going to get into those details here because that might confuse a lot of people who are pretty basic. But yes, to answer your question, yes, there is a difference. But yes, administration wise, both of them get listed in the list of roles.
Thank you.
Okay. Right. So here, what happened was I was connected to test using U1. So when I tried creating the role, it gave me permission denied. Okay, because I have not given any kind of privileges to user, right? So let's try and give those privileges and see what happens, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to again connect /c test and maybe with U1, right? So now what I'm going to do, I'm trying to create a new database. So I'm a user as U1, so select current underscore user. I will try to create a database. So create database, maybe test 1. Okay. So it tells me permission denied. The reason being the U1 user doesn't have those permissions. So it can only connect to available databases and it can do stuff in public schema. But it doesn't have any other privilege, like it cannot create a new database, it cannot create a new user. So for that, you have to give extra privileges to that. Okay. So what privilege I will give is, I will again, in order to give to U1, I have to go to Postgres. So see Postgres. Okay. So grant, the command is, I guess, okay. So I think alter user U1 create DB. Okay, so this is the privilege I want to give to U1. Then only it can create the user. So let me see if it works. Okay. Alter user U1 create DB. Okay. Okay, I'm still as U1 user. So that is why it's giving me because I cannot grant privilege to myself. So I will now connect to Postgres and run the command again. So now even if I give alter user, it says alter role. Okay. So yeah, so it is little confusing, but once you have the knowledge, you will find out it's easy. So now I've given create DB privilege to U1, and if I look at that, so if I do /du, so you can see there's a create DB privilege. It shows. So now if I try to create a database using U1, it should allow me, right? So /c connect to Postgres database or any database using U1. Okay. And now if I try to create a database, so create database test1. Sorry, create database test. So you can see it says create database, that was successful. So if I look at the list, you can see here there is a test1 database owned by U1 because we created through U1. Rest everything remains the same because it will use template 0 and template 1, any of this to create the new database. That is why the size remains the same. But yeah, the user, you can see it is the owner is U1. Okay. Any questions?
Sorry, Ankit, I have some production issue. Will you guys sharing this recording later?
I think
This
yes,
is
you will get the
Pradesh.
link to the recording you will get.
Okay, I have some production issue. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you.
For
Thanks. No problem. Yeah. Anybody has any other question?
Yeah. Sorry. My question would be, is there a way of transferring ownership in case a user created
Yes.
an object?
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
So, for example, if I have a test database which is owned by U1, and if I want to drop U1, right, I can definitely transfer the ownership of U1 to some other database, some other user. So I can transfer test1 to maybe U2. So that is possible, yes. So if you answer your question, yes, that is possible.
Thank you. So another one. Sorry for my too much question.
No, it's fine. That's fine. This is for you only. Go ahead.
So what is advisable? Is it advisable to give users access to create objects, or just give them an account, which will be a general account for everybody, so that we won't be transferring objects? Which one is the best practice?
you don't give general accounts. That is not a best practice in databases. Okay, so if I have 10 users, I would definitely give them their own users. Okay, I don't give them a generic, because I don't know then who did what, right? So you always give individual users to your whoever is there, so that you can keep track who is doing what in the database. Otherwise, that is impossible to track.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying that in the sense of, what if that user leaves the organization and we disable that account? Hope is not going to, like, break stops.
So if for example there is a user called Jude, right, and you have a test database in your ownership, and you are moving out, so you can definitely, the transfer of ownership can happen from you to me. That is not a problem. Okay.
Okay.
So that is perfectly doable. Okay. Anybody else?
How we are going to connect to a remote database server? Okay, so suppose I'm using my laptop and I'm trying to connect to a specific Postgres server. So how I'm going to connect to that specific one?
So
Do I need to provide any host string or port and all?
Yes. So how did I connect it was, because it's on my local box, I just gave pSQL right here. But if you are connecting to a remote box, right, so you have to give pSQL -h, give the host name, whatever is 172 dot or whatever your name is, right? Then
Okay.
And then you give your -u, your username, if it is other than Postgres. And if it's running on some other port, like somebody asked, right? So -p 5433. So like that, you have to give the complete sentence. Okay. Got
Okay.
it?
And do we need to give the database name too? Because on that server there might be multiple databases running, right?
If you know the database name, you can give the database name. If you don't give, it will by default go and connect to Postgres database.
Okay, got
So
it.
for
Thanks.
example, if I have a test database, right? So if I want to connect to test database, right? So I don't remember the command, but I guess it's pSQL -d and test. If I give, I don't know if it work or not, but let me try. So see, it directly went and connected to test. Correct?
Got it. Yeah.
If I don't give anything, if I just give
Thanks.
pSQL, so it will go and connect to Postgres like that. Okay. So everything has options
Okay, got
available.
it.
If you don't know what options are there, just give pSQL -help, and then you can see these options are there. So you can definitely look at them and find out what works for you. So hyphen, for the port, you will have to give -p. See this -p here. So those things are there. Okay. So use them for your advantage.
Sure. Thanks.
No problem. Any other questions?
Ankit, the Oracle is having like listener concept. So Postgres, so what is the
Postgres has
concept for that?
postmaster concept.
So
Okay, so
how
this
to
I
check the
explained
default?
in right. So this I explained in my last session. So but if you still want to check it, you just give ps-ef on the box, grep post or Postgres, whatever you want to give. So you can see the background processes running here. These are the background processes, and this is your postmaster. Okay, so this is analogous to your listener in Oracle. Okay, this process, which will have the information about your data directory. Okay, so
Okay.
just go through the previous
In ADB means,
architecture session.
in ADB means you have to go PSF and grep ADB. If you go Postgres only, it will list all the port background processes.
I did not understand the question. Can you repeat?
When now we give PSF and EF grep Postgres, right, to get the list of
Right.
background processor.
Right.
In EDB database, EDB Postgres also is the same command or different?
Yes, I think you can give grep EDB or you can give grep Postgres. So I think both, either of them will work, but it will give you the same details. Okay. Okay. Any
How
other
to check
questions?
the port number?
Yeah.
Port number and how to change it if possible?
Okay. So fine. So if you want to look at the port number of, because it doesn't say anything, right? So that's a good question. Because see, so I will tell you one simple thing. if it doesn't show anything, that is by default 5432. Okay. But if it is running on a different port, it will show here like 5433, 5434. Okay. In this line only it will show. But still, if you want that somewhere it should be there, I will tell you that just go to your data directory. So I am in my home directory. I will go to data directory, and here there is a file called postmaster.pid. Okay, so just you do cat and open this. It will tell you the port number here. See. Okay, so these are the two ways you can figure out, because if it is running on 5433, it will show up here only, so you don't have to look anywhere else. But if you
all the database, yeah, I got it. So all the database running on the same port, or we can put like a test database we can run on a different port, like.
So here the concept of port is at the cluster level, the database cluster.
Okay.
And what is the database cluster? It's a group of databases. Right. So whatever database I create under this installation, it will all run on one port 5432. Okay, that it's a different from Oracle, where every database has its own port, but it's not like in Postgres. You can create n number of databases under same installation, which will use the same port. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else has any other question? Great. So just a little bit more information about. Yeah. Go ahead.
Ankit, is having any security parameters or something like listener? Because currently we having like on the like COVID situation, and we are connecting remotely and all these things. So Postgres is having some security features to connectivity, like on the listener level configuration, some parameters.
Postmaster will take care of that. Okay. So how your listener is in Oracle, right? You have Postmaster in your Postgres. So any outside connection will first fall on your Postmaster. Postmaster will look at the authentication, whether you are a authorized user or not. And if you are, then only you get connected to the database. Okay. So that particular thing will be taken care by Postmaster.
Okay.
Okay. So if I'm, for example, if I'm using a pgAdmin from outside, pgAdmin is a client, right? How we have Oracle client, SQL developer, that pgAdmin is there. So from pgAdmin, if I try to connect to this database, okay, it will look at the username and password that I have given. So if my username and password is not correct, it will not allow me to connect to the database. Okay.
Okay. It is also having a password concept, like somewhere it's stored on the OS level, or only the database level password is there.
So Postgres, right? The Postgres user, correct? That is there. It is having the same password at the OS level as the database level, because it's one user. Okay, but it's available both. So how I am able to connect is because I am as a Postgres user here. Okay, that is why I'm able to connect. So yes, your Postgres user, to answer your question, yes, it has a password, and if you want to connect from outside, you need to give the password of the Postgres user.
Ankit, I have one doubt, Ankit. See, when in Oracle, if you log in from remotely, it shows local equal to no, something like that, right? When you grab the Oracle users. In Postgres, how it shows? Any idea?
It will have the there's an so when you do a ps-ef, right, it will show you the details here. It's an outside connection or something. So you once you look at that, you will be able to figure out, okay, this is a connection from the outside. So that is there. I have seen that, but I can't show it right now, but it's there. Okay.
Username and IP, it will be there when you do the PSF.
Right. It will be there. Username would be same. So if you are using Postgres, the username remains the same. But yes, it will tell you from which machine or something the connection is coming from. How you have $session, right? In Oracle, where it tells you the machine name, the IP, and all those things. That you will see it here only in the background in these processes. So you will find out.
I think we can do whitelisting and IPs as well.
Yes.
That is at the OS level. It has nothing to do with the database. So if you want to connect to this remotely, and if you're under a cloud, right, you definitely have to open the port or whitelist the IP. That you have to do.
If you have on-premises, like how if you want to restrict the IP addresses, do we have at database level any?
No, not at the database level. You can do it at the cluster level only. So if whatever you do will affect all your databases.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Right. So let me just finish this part. Installation wise, I just want to tell you that how the installation happens is when you install it, it will create a home for you. So this is my home, opt PostgreSQL 10, and I installed it using root. So this is where my home will get created. And once you do that, right, if I go inside this and see, you can see that everything is in root, but there is a data directory that is available. Okay, so you see this, and that is from the Postgres user. So always remember, Postgres is a file system based database. So anything and everything that comes. So for example, I created a new database, right, or I created a new table. Everything will go inside and get into this data directory. So if I go into data, everything is there in this data directory. So that is how Postgres maintains the details.
You mean any utilities, everything will be there here only, right?
Your utility will be under your home directory, but your data, your whatever you are doing within all your databases will be under your data directory.
I think if you install any other packages, also will be in home directory, right? Then.
Right. Because you don't install anything under data directory. It is basically for your data. Okay. And you have your PostgreSQL.conf file. This is synonymous to your SP file and P file in Oracle, if you know Oracle, guys. So any changes that you do or any default behavior of your database that you see, like available amount of memory or anything that is available in your PostgreSQL.conf. So you can make changes in this, reboot, you reload your service, and it will take effect. So this file is available here in data directory. So this is how when you install, what you need to take care is wherever you are installing, right, that file system should have enough space. So now if I check df-h dot, this much space I have on this box, on this particular file system where the data directory resides. So whenever you create a database or you create something, you don't have to worry about adding data files to your tablespace and all those things. Those concepts are not there in Postgres. You don't have to worry about that. It will take the space available on the file system. So those headache you don't have to take. Tablespace concept is completely nullified in Postgres. So you don't have to worry about tablespaces and all. Create databases, you create how much databases you want. Only thing you remember is that there should be space available at your file system level. Okay. Any questions?
Ankit,
Anybody?
Ankit,
Yeah.
Ankit, the resource configuration is having in Postgres database level.
When you say resource configuration, can you give an example?
Like CPU memory or something,
Yes.
like CPU, like.
Correct. So there are certain configurations that are at the cluster level, okay, and there are certain configurations that are at the database level. So for example, wall memory is there, right? Wall memory will be at the database level, so you can configure for each database. But there are certain configurations that you change that will affect the entire cluster. So when I say entire cluster, all the databases in the cluster.
Like a process or session will be having a limit on database level. Any concept in Postgres, like
process or session having a limit on the data? What kind of limit?
like because like a 10 user need to be connect on test database and 20 user need to be connect on test 2 database, like this.
Achha, yes, you can do that at the database level. You can limit the number of connections. Yes, you can do
Connections,
that.
yeah. Okay.
Yes, that is possible. Yes. Those things, those things are pretty similar to what you have in Oracle and other databases, right? So if I want that, I should have only one connection on the test database. I can limit that. Okay.
Okay.
So those things are there.
Yes, I have one more question. Can we create the database name with a different table space name? I guess by default it will create the default table space, right?
You can create.
Okay.
So whenever you
If
do a
it's
create database, for example, I do a create database here, right? I can give the tablespace name here, tablespace name like that. So then it will use that table. But for that, first you need to create a tablespace. Okay. Then only you can use the tablespace. By default, it has only 2 tablespaces. Okay. And by default, it will use pg underscore default tablespace. But if you want to do that, you can create a tablespace first, then give the tablespace name in the create database command. Okay. That is possible.
okay, that table space we can redirect it to the some other mount point. I think yes, slash data slash mount point, right?
You can
So I
do
want
that.
to create the another mount point.
You can do that. You can create tablespace at any mount points. That is not a problem. Only thing that you need to remember is your Postgres user should have a right access to that mount point. Okay, so if you, for example, you created it outside data directory, the table space, but and you forgot to give read and write permission to Postgres user, then it will not work. Okay, so that you need to take care.
Yeah. So in okay, in one server we can create the 4 mount points for different name. We can accordingly we can create the 4 databases also, right? One database for the one file system. Is it this same thing?
But why do you want to do that? This will this will degrade your performance because it has to go to other mount point, fetch data, and again come back every time you run something.
Okay, but if all database keep in one mount point, right? If it's getting full, there is some file system level also there is some external.
So that you need to manage. So you need to manage that the space never goes out of. It doesn't go out of space. I'm not saying that you cannot do the previous that what you said, but it is a performance hazard. Because if I run select star from that database, it has to go to that mount point, get the data, and come back. It will take longer time, obviously, right? Other than if the data is already in the same mount point where my processes are running. So that is a lot of input IO. So that you need to take a call whether that is fine for you or not. See, Postgres is not something that will exponentially increase the database. So you don't have to worry about the space if it is not exponentially increasing. If it is increasing, that that mount point also will get filled, right? So you need to manage that mount point also where you are using separate mount points. So at the end of the day, you need to manage space.
Okay. Sorry. I have a question because I'm coming from SQL Server perspective. Right. So how do you manage transaction logs here? Because I know transaction logs at times gets filled up or something, the transaction log drive. So in Postgres, is there anything like that? If there is, how do you manage it?
See, you need to have, so in order to manage the space, you need to have your prevention where you have your alerts available. So as soon as, for example, if you see my file system, it is now used 2.5 GB. So I'm going to put an alert on this where as soon as this is 35 GB, you give me an alert, right? So that I can either reduce the space or add space in this.
Okay.
Okay, so this is how you manage. That's how your operational database work. So you need to be proactive in making sure that you get alerts, timely alerts about your spaces.
Okay.
Right. Anybody else? I have another 10 minutes with you guys. So any other questions?
Can we have same table space for multiple databases?
In Postgres, it is how it is. All the databases are using one table space. This is PG default. So if you look at this, right, you can see here all these databases.
No, I'm talking about non-default table space. If we create a non-default,
you can.
Okay.
So I create another table space but that doesn't make any sense. Okay, but if you want to share the table space, then why don't you use the default table space?
Okay,
what is the point of creating a new table space and then do it? Because then you have to manage that table space separately. It is not something that is manageable in Postgres automatically. If you create tablespace in Postgres, you need to manage them separately. Every backup will have its a separate backup of that particular external tablespace. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
Right. Anybody else? Or Karthik, is there anything on the agenda about question answers or something? No, right?
Ankit, sorry,
Yeah.
quick question. So
Yes.
I understand you have a PG default table space, which really doesn't mean much in terms of trying to compare with Oracle because the purpose is totally different here.
Correct.
So, but given that scenario, if I want to see what are all the objects that are part of this PG default table space, is there a query or it doesn't have much reference?
Objects are always at the database level. Okay.
True. Even in Oracle also, the objects are at the database level only.
But the table spaces are also at the database level, right? In Oracle.
Correct. Table space is a logical structure. It's like a grouping,
Correct.
right? That's all we use
So
it
here, that's what I'm saying. So if you want to look at, for example, if I want to look at all the objects, right, I have to connect to individual database and look at their objects.
for. Oh, okay.
There is no
So
such command where it tells me, okay, you know, these 5 objects are this database, these 5 objects are this database, not like that.
oh, okay. Got you. Yep. Thanks.
Okay. Anybody else, or I think we can wind this up.
Typical configuration for a production level database, like file system structure and some parameters, which is like efficient one, medium sized database example.
So see, the one thing that you keep in mind is you have limited IO. Okay, so you make sure that if I am an architect, I would make sure that everything is on the same mount point. I will not tinker with mount points first point. Okay, I will always make sure it's on the same mount point because I don't want IO overhead because that will degrade the performance to great level. Second thing, always there is enough space available on the box. Third thing, the CPU and memories are always managed because all these processes are taking CPU and memory. So I need to make sure that whatever is running is manageable on the box. That's it. You don't do anything apart from these from performance perspective, and you will have a proper database running. Also, at the database level, you need to make sure the users that are getting whenever you create a new user, right? The users get by default access to the database. So that you need to maybe look at. You can just revoke the access once you create the data user. Okay, so those things that you might have to look at.
Is there any calculation like how much work memory, I mean instance tuning for these kind of processes, for 100 processes, this much memory, like example?
So you don't give for 100 processes, you give collective memory, like so you have SGA in Oracle, correct?
Yeah, I'm just telling an example.
Yeah, so
suppose
you have wall memory. So I think there's something called a show.
Yeah, is there any like calculation?
I don't remember the there is there. So calculation is, see how it is, you always do a capacity load, right? When you do a design, so you do a capacity load. Okay, you know, within 3 months, this is the amount of database that is going to grow. These are the number of users that I want to have I might have in my database. These are the amount of space that I would need. Based on that, you allocate memory. So your memory allocation is always based on your capacity planning of the database that you see growth in maybe minimum 3 to 6 years, 3 to 6 months. So that's how you manage. There is no benchmark where you should have this much memory. No, how much more memory is there, that is enough. But based on what your database is gonna, if I have a redo generation of 500 gig every day, I know how much memory I need, right? That's how you do.
And Postgres is having some advisory like views or something to get this
Advisory what?
Views like
Yeah,
Oracle
there
is
are.
having.
ADDM, ADR, AW or something.
You have those things. So your user $V session, I have the information about my logs and all those in Oracle, right? Your Postgres also has those things. So you will get your data fragmentation details from a view. So you can find out which table is fragmented or at what level it is fragmented. Everything is clearly you can find out in Postgres database. Okay, so I have written an article also on that data fragmentation. I would just ask Karthik to put it in the chat window. Just go through those articles. You will find out, how best you can manage performance in Postgres. So the main culprit is always data fragmentation in Postgres. Okay. So those views are available to answer short.
So in production, you manage all in one data file system, or do you manage separate like pgval in different just for efficiency?
I did not get the question. Can you repeat, because there was somebody else also speaking?
Yeah. Do you manage all the PG directories in under data alone?
Yes,
or
yes.
like pgval in different mount point just to get some efficiency?
No. Why? If you put it in a different mount point, it will increase the IO overhead, right?
Yes.
So you don't want to put it in different mount point. If you can manage, just manage everything from data. If you are worried about your data will corrupt your data, you always create a DR and keep it, right?
Okay.
But yeah. Okay.
And
Anybody else? Yeah.
Yeah, that's feedback link.
Okay. There is a feedback link available in the chat window. Okay. Let me just. If you can see the chat also, you please go to this link and give your feedback for these sessions. We would definitely would like to evolve more and act on what kind of feedback that we get. It's a knowledge sharing session, so if I just open this link and show it to you guys, just a moment. If it gets opened, yeah. So this is the feedback link. So just go there and just give your feedback. Follow KT experts. Everything will be available on this KT experts page. So we announce it like this. See, so you have a Postgres session coming up. When there is a recording that is uploaded, that also is available here. So please, try doing that. Great. So let's wind this up. If I can take one more question, if anybody has. If not, we can wind this up. I would definitely would want to get in touch with you guys. Just reach me out on my LinkedIn if anything is there. If you want to connect with me for anything, just I am available on LinkedIn. Reach me out on LinkedIn, and we can chat, talk, and take it forward. Great. So anything else, Karthik, or we can just wind this up?
Ankit, I have one question.
Yeah.
So Postgres is having some security patches or directly having upgrade? Like
Postgres is an open source, so it doesn't have any such kind of security patches that you get in Oracle or something, right? It will have major releases. So it's managed by a group of developers. So whenever there are any issues that they see or somebody reports to them, okay, this is not working fine, they will fix it and release it into the next major release. So that's how it works in Postgres. Okay. Okay, thank you so much for your time. I hope the session was fruitful. Please take some time out for the feedback, and I would definitely see you guys in the next session.